Hey, what's up? I'm Mike Squires, and this is Couchless Podcast, episode number 133, with my guest, Jeff Rouse, who's also one of my dearest and closest friends. I've played more shows with this guy than anyone else I've ever played shows with. We've been all over the world. Most all of my greatest musical experiences have been somehow tied to him and with him. And I feel like we share a lot. We probably share half a brain between the two of us. But I had a great time talking with him. He's got 2 new releases coming in the next 4 to 6 weeks with his band, Gemini Affair, a 7-inch through the Hockey Talkter label in Seattle, Mike McCready's record label, and then an EP through an LA label, which he mentions the name of. It's got a video coming, and it's great. It's like catchy, melodic, modern goth rock. It's like it really is exactly what he is. He is unbridled by being the bassist in a band, a contributing writer, but now he is the writer of the band, and it's great. I love it. So we had a great time. Catching up. We talk often, so we get into some stuff, some Seattle history and stuff like this. We had a great time. So I hope that you enjoy it also. Listen, if you enjoy the podcast, go check out the Patreon, would you? Support us and the podcast and the videos that we produce over there at patreon.com/couchriffs. There are a bunch of cool tiers. You get some exclusive merch over there. Some stuff that no one's ever seen, because I'm just going to spring it on people who support. And then also you can download the audio from all the videos that we put out. So I really appreciate your support. Also, thank you so much to River City Guitars in Spokane, Washington. RiverCityGuitars.com specializes in vintage, used, and generally cool boutique-y stuff. The stuff you want. That's what they specialize in. And you can go get a look at their website, rivercityguitars.com. Follow them on social media. That's what you want to do, because that's where you're going to see stuff quickly. But if you have something to sell, every day's a buying day over there. So give them a call at 509-818-7693 or shoot them an email, sales.rivercityguitars@gmail.com, and swing a deal. Get yourself some holiday money. My guy Bobby over there, we met through doing business. And if you meet someone through doing business and you are able to create a friendship out of that, they're good. They're a good person. They're good people. So I hope you enjoy this conversation as much as I did. Probably, it's me and Rouse. You've got to, right? Don't forget the golden rule. Treat people the way you want to be treated, and don't be a dick or an asshole.
Okay, I can hear you too.
What the fuck?
I don't know, man.
Look at your giddy up.
My what?
Look at your giddy up here.
What? My what?
You're
here?
Your new place. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm getting there. It's all good.
Tell what's up with the drum kit back here.
That's Stacy's kit.
Really?
Yeah. She grew up playing drums, and her dad got that for her for Silas as well. But Stacy's a pretty good drummer. She could play just if you want to play just a 4 on the floor beat, she'll play all day long with you. It's hilarious.
That's rad.
Her meter's great. So
what a fun thing for you guys to get to do together.
Yeah, it's really silly. She gets really embarrassed. It's amazing. And to me, I don't care. She gets super self-conscious. I'm like, it's the funnest thing in the world. It doesn't matter. Right. So it's a little cold down here, but it's good.
Nice. You got a little space heater?
I got a little space heater, but I have it turned off in case I don't want to blow a breaker or something with all this shit.
I do that shit all the time.
So yeah, it's all good. Well, what a shitty game, huh?
dude. So I was in a podcast. I
Right.
didn't mind. Like, I looked at the schedule and I was like, I can schedule a podcast right there. It's okay.
Yeah.
I
You
was
didn't mention
wrong.
anything.
I mean, uh, what a mess.
Yeah, you would have hated it.
What a mess.
Yeah, it's
I
a
mean, the
mess.
worst part about it is I don't get to stream a lot of Seahawks games here, but because that's a Giants game, I can
Right.
stream it here locally in New York,
Mhm.
and I fucking wish I couldn't.
Yeah. Yeah. It was frustrating. Oh well. We could have done this hours ago. I didn't even need to watch that.
Right.
It's okay though.
What's up, man?
Nothing. Kicking it.
You
Sunday
look like a
afternoon.
handsome woolly mammoth.
What's that?
I said you look like a handsome woolly mammoth.
Well, it's called no haircuts. It's either shave my head or let it grow because I ain't going anywhere to get a haircut.
Right.
And so, like, I might as well just let the beard go too. You
Right.
know?
Why not?
Yeah, that's fine.
I'm also growing my hair out, and I've got to you've seen my hair in a lot of different states
Yep.
of being.
Yeah. What's it going to be this time?
Well, I mean, it's in the grow out. So I have like a page boy like Bob right now.
Kind of my favorite Mike Squires. I like it when you look a little younger.
Well, I mean, there's so much gray in there that
Yeah, yeah.
the gray hairs, they're frizzier than the hairs that retain their color.
Dude, I don't even know what color my hair is. I have no clue. None.
Your brother is fair-haired.
He is. So, well, my mom is as well. Well, so I would be too. I'm sure my hair, the beard is totally white. I mean, it just looks ridiculous with a white beard. I look ridiculous. So it's either no beard or I just just ferment it, or I don't have a beard. It is fully white.
Is that right?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
That's pretty rad.
So, I mean, I've thought about maybe I could just like strip all the color out and just go full gray hair, full gray beard. Like, what's that guy from like Roadhouse, Sam Elliott?
Right?
You know what I mean? Fuck it.
Come here.
Yeah, let's see the doggies.
Well, he came over to say hello. He came over to say, "What's up? Let me get
What's
up." And then he bailed. He was
Yeah.
like, he heard a sound on the porch. That's Mr.
Aw.
Big.
Zipper's upstairs someplace, or I'd have him come down. He'd just go crazy. He'll be a handful.
You'll be happy to know I've been doing Instagram Live lately for whatever reason. I don't know why I got inspired all of a sudden.
Uh-huh.
I did my first one on my sober birthday, which was
Awesome.
December 1st.
Congratulations, by the way. That's amazing.
Thank
Someday I'll have one of those.
Yeah. You know
what I mean.
I wish I could say they're overrated, but they're not.
Yeah.
I was doing one the other day and someone said, "Can you get Jeff Rouse on the podcast?" And this was yesterday.
Okay.
And I said, "Do you have his number?"
Who was it?
I don't remember.
Amarillo Rodriguez, Gunner.
783.
783 Gunner. Yeah.
No.
Izzy Dufferson 783.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Izzy Duff Hudson.
Yeah. Izzy Duff Hudson. Yeah. That's funny.
Snizzy Duff Hudson.
Yeah, exactly.
So anyway, yeah. I didn't completely let the cat out of the bag, but I was like, yeah, Rouse is coming on the podcast. So
what are we going to talk about? Like, we talk too much. Like, what do you like? What really? What are we going to talk about?
I mean, buddy, look, you kind of nailed it right there. We talk too much. I mean, I talk too much. But
yeah.
What are we going to talk about? We can talk about. You have some things coming up. That's cool.
Yeah.
Dude, did you see the Highwayman thing?
No, I haven't seen it yet.
Oh,
I need to watch.
Fucking butthole.
I should watch it right now.
Oh, this could, that we could spend some time. This could be like one of those reaction videos.
Are we recording right now?
Yeah, man.
Okay, we're live. Okay, so hold on.
Do you mind if the stuff about you dyeing your hair I mean, I don't think anyone thinks that your hair's not dyed.
Dude, at this point, I don't give a fuck about anything. I really don't care. Like, that's the thing, like, about, I'm looking, where's a goddamn link?
That's the thing about getting older. You start not giving a fuck.
Yeah, I really don't care. And that's the scary thing. Where's your link on your like Facebook? Where do I go?
Go to KEXP.
Oh,
It's on the KEXP YouTube.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. It's not on my joint. It's because it's a fundraiser, man. But I think, oh, my dog just farted on my lap. I felt it and now I smell it.
Oh, that's the worst.
What the fuck, Mr. D? For such a little guy, he really creates a powerful smell. Is that your Nash back there?
It is.
That is a handsome rig.
I love that bass. I like my white one better, so it stays get put away. That one can stay out. The white one I love. I mean, I love them both. They're pretty much identical, but that white one has some other juju on it that the other ones don't. Like, I figure I'd get good at some of this stuff, and I'm looking at the KXP, and are you buried in here or something? Where are you?
You're looking at the YouTube KEXP YouTube channel.
Yeah. KXP. Let me look again. Hold on.
Maybe search for Smooch. I don't know at what point it comes in. So far, this is terrible radio.
I'm so sorry. I thought we were just
like being on tour. Like we're having a conversation. You're staring at your phone.
No, I'm not trying to. I'm really just trying to do this. Smooch. Here we go. Okay.
Yeah. So you want to go flash forward to like 51 minutes or something. It's pretty far up there.
Okay, now I see. Okay. Are you happy the way, first of all, before I started, are you stoked? Do you like it?
Yeah, really, really happy.
Let me see jerks do this. I'm Jeff Sparring, CEO. Hi, Jeff.
Oh, that's the beginning.
I know.
And for showing up to support Seattle.
I'm way.
There you are.
I'm way back. I'm way down the line.
I got you. Story of our lives.
Thank you. Yeah.
Don Gunn isn't Don Gunn amazing?
Don Gunn's the best.
Yeah, I think
he's the best.
Yeah. Okay. This is really weird because I have you here and I have you here.
Couch Riffs would be a shadow of itself without Don.
I kind of feel like that about my last few years.
Yeah.
Okay, here we go. There's Jeffrey.
What do you think? And now, along the way, as I was building this, I told you who was in it, right?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
So you got your Gibbard there.
I got. Uh-huh. And you got Nate.
More. Got your Nate Mendel.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. You got your Jason McGurn. Got your Jefferson Angel.
Do you do the little clip, the video? Do you do all the video editing with the clips and the whatnots? Like, do you do all of that part?
Yeah.
You do so good. It's so great, Mike. You're really good at this stuff.
Yeah, I was recently contacted by a relatively high-profile artist, higher profile than me, a legendary artist. I will say that.
Okay.
And I'm really hoping that I can get him on the podcast. But he was like, "Yeah, maybe would you cut videos together for us?" And I was like, "Yeah,
that's great.
Absolutely." There's your boy.
Yeah. Well, was that Ant? Wait, hold on.
Isaac Brock.
Isaac Brock been hanging out for. I guess I don't follow anybody. I don't know where anybody is.
Portland. I mean, capturing Isaac and Lanigan those were the two most unexpected. I mean, everyone else you at least see on social media every once in a while, but those two guys, like, they just don't pop up very often.
Yeah. It would be kind of detrimental to how cool they are if they did, because they wouldn't be so mysterious. I don't want to see Mark Lanigan every day on social media doing stuff. You know what I mean? What was that story? I don't remember. There's so many stories about Mark Lanigan that I've heard that I love, but he's probably one of just the coolest.
Yeah, for sure.
Remember when we actually played with him?
We got to be his band.
Yeah.
Career highlight for me.
God, he's great. I just remember playing, and I think we were working on the song, and he wasn't even on the microphone yet, and he was singing in the room, and you could still hear it.
In the practice space.
Yeah, it was crazy.
Yeah.
Like, it's like the most resonant voice you've ever heard in your life. Like, we're not quiet. Even when we're trying to be quiet, we're loud, you know?
No, he's incredible. And also, he looks so fucking cool with those gold teeth.
You
I'll
think?
never be that cool. I'll
No,
never
no,
be that cool.
no one can ever be Mark Lanigan cool, really.
No, not really. Boom.
Who was this? That solo was amazing.
Ian
That
Moore.
was great.
That's your boy on the Ebo there.
Good work.
Thank you.
You can always cut yourself. You can always cut your see. You can always make sure you're the last person anybody sees because it's your thing. You can be the first one, and you can be the last one.
Ooh, I'm rarely the first one, and I don't cut. I cut myself into the videos the least.
Yeah, I know. I'm just giving you a hard
person.
Yeah.
And it's weird because I try to look at it like, well, you know, what if someone else was doing it, but then I never do it that way. I'm always like, you know what? I'm not I'm the organizer, the producer. I'm not the draw here. So,
have you done one with somebody other than yours yet?
I'm doing one now, and I'm pretty pumped on it.
I mean, is it weird though? Because with this thing, you have complete kind of control, and you can and you've turned, you can do it. You've learned how to do it really well. It's not something you've really grown into it. You've learned and you've made, you know what I mean? Now you have to do it with somebody else.
It is a relief to do it with someone else because all you have to do is learn the song, record yourself, and film yourself as you do it. That's it. Then I send it off, and I don't have to fuck with it. Like being the producer is a lot of work.
Yeah,
it's a lot of work.
Are you glad you're
like if you say to someone, hey, I'm going to get you these tracks, the stems, can you record your part this weekend? Everyone will either say yeah, or they'll say, oh, I'm booked this weekend, but I'll get it to you by Tuesday. But what they don't tell you is what they mean is Tuesday in 3 weeks.
Right. Well, I'll turn on my computer on Tuesday and I'll start learning the song Tuesday.
Because everyone's so fucking busy right now. I don't know. I mean, some people are very busy. I'm very busy.
I guess maybe some people are. It's a weird, I don't know, man.
Mental health stuff. People are in their heads.
Yeah. Like, I don't know, like if things, I mean, I'm sure you're hustling. I see quite a few people just still hustling, and it's amazing to see people putting out and trying to engage constantly and like still releasing music just however they can. And hats off to them, I guess. You know what I mean? Like, it's hard to kind of think about like, well, I could do that. And maybe, I guess me and you have talked about this, maybe my 20-something-year-old self would feel a lot differently about it.
Yeah, there's a part of me that, like, I certainly don't put any self-worth or value on how many likes I get, but I recognize that, you know, there is value in those, but it's not personal value. You know,
No,
it's
brand value. Yes, it's brand value, not personal value.
Yeah. And I think I don't know, as an old world soul, that's a strange transition to make and realize, right?
It is.
Like,
I think maybe that's probably the most healthy thing that's happened to me out of this year is getting rid of that tunnel vision.
Right.
Because I've had it my whole life.
You
mean?
Yeah.
I always have, to the detriment of relationships and friendships and all this other stuff that goes along with you trying to, well, me trying to constantly be working or do the next thing and trying to do something and keep working. And like, it's that thing where like, okay, well, you kind of start to, I mean, thank God I don't have a crazy nickname that I can buy into or something. You know what I mean? You know, like a lot of musicians or actors become a caricature of themselves. And I've definitely done that just in my own stupid way. And the best thing about,
do you remember the nickname that Kathleen Wilson gave you in like 90 8.
Yeah. What was that? It was a Darth Bobbio or something?
Darth Fabio. Yeah.
Yeah.
I still use that one for you sometimes.
It's a
really
good one. It's a
good.
good one.
It's great.
But yeah, maybe that's the best thing about this year. I forgot about her. Have you ever talked to her?
No, I see her pop up in the social medias every once in a while.
Yeah, I don't think I have. I don't think I ever do.
And she's got a family and stuff. And
Good for
she's
her.
not in the rock world.
Mhm.
Yeah.
God, her word used to be like Seattle gospel.
Right. Yeah. If she wrote it in the Stranger, then it was so. Right?
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's a whole other. I don't know what. Yeah. That's a whole.
Well, there
other
was
world.
the Stranger before the internet was the internet, right? The internet is what it is now, but back then the internet was a thing that you fucking took 45 seconds to log on to.
Yep.
And then you get on there and you type an email, and 30 seconds later it says, okay, it's sent.
Yep.
And then you bail, you know.
Yeah.
And back then, like, the printed word was still everything.
Yeah. Those little rumor, little gossip columns in the local
So
music rags were just like amazing. That's
so
funny.
good.
Yeah.
Really good.
Yeah.
I guess I'm going to try and ask you some questions. And this is totally not like, it's so ridiculous and funny because we've had so many conversations over the years. I feel like I've quilted your life story together,
Well,
but I don't know, like, I don't know when you actually started playing or what your very first band was. I just know you're a South End kid from Puyallup.
Sure.
And
It's no story that's. I mean, it's no different than any other probably kid. Like went through the saxophone stuff in grade school and the violin, and then sixth grade teacher decided he could teach acoustic guitar after school if you wanted to play. So I played a little bit of that. And then I always sang. So I was always in choir, and I could never pick up anything else very well. So I always sang. So I thought I'd be a singer, right?
No.
That's how I got the most attention as a little kid, and being a little, a dick on Thanksgiving or Christmas and standing on top of the stereo with headphones on, singing Sean Cassidy or the Osmonds or Michael Jackson or something.
Yeah.
And then, but then I got into junior high, and that's kind of when that's when you actually meet kids that aren't in your neighborhood.
Right.
And this guy, Tony McCatton, is still one of my great friend. And we got to be friends. And his older brother, Todd, was in this band called Crimson Steel. And
really? That's amazing.
Yeah, and they were amazing. And they practiced in Tony's basement. And I think it was like one of the first few times I went over to Tony's house after we got to be friends. And I'm like, what the fuck is going on down there? So we went down there, and they let us sit on the couch and watch them play.
I'm still laughing about the name.
It was amazing. And his brother Todd would wear back then, he would tie scarves around his ankles. Around his knees. So It looked like flared scarves. And he kind of looked like Eddie Van Halen. He had a red Kramer. And they'd play Van Halen and Iron Maiden and Judas Priest and all those songs.
Did they have originals? Any?
I think, no, I don't really remember that part of it. It was covers. And then, and Tony, because he grew up in a musical household, played guitar. That's how I started going to shows. And then 10th grade, the summer before 10th grade, he got in a band. And all of a sudden, we weren't really hanging out as much because they already had a singer. They had two singers. The drummer played drums, obviously, and sang, and there was a singer. So I'm like, well, I can't be in the band because there can't be three singers. He's like, you should play bass. I'm like, okay. That way I could be in a band. And so I talked my parents into going to Hi-Ho Music in downtown Puyallup, and they bought me like a $200 Aria, and I bought a realistic Radio Shack hand-built amp that only had distortion. And I learned how to play with one, and Tony would show me bass lines, and all of a sudden I'm in a band. And we just started playing in high school band, and taught me how to hustle, because all of a sudden we figured out we can make money playing for the football booster club events. So that's the parents of the football players that have these once a month parties where they go and they drink a bunch and they have these dinners and they raise money and stuff. But they would hire our band to play. Maybe they gave us $100.
Right.
But that was like $20 a piece, and we would play, and they were cool.
You were
we
what
played
grade?
all through high school, 10th, 11th. It really started to kind of happen in 12th grade is when we really figured it out, because Tony became ASB president. And ASB president, now we were playing every dance, every assembly. You know what I mean? Like and he was really witty. So we would take songs of the day and change the words to kind of whatever's happening in high school that month. Nice. So we'd play the pep assembly. We played the opening day assembly. The first thing when everyone comes to school and goes in the gym, the first thing that happened was our band fired up and we played. And we played a medley of like 5 songs. Oh, I can't remember what the words were, but it was like a Bryan Adams song, The Outfield, a Beatles and Elvis, whatever. And God, people started to just like, we would play dances and people would unplug my bass amp. I mean, people got tired of it.
Let me ask you this really quick.
Yeah.
Do you think that if you knew then that making $20 a gig was pretty standard for the rest of your life,
right,
you'd have continued on playing music as a career?
Probably.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. It was one of those things. I just wasn't really, I'm not saying I'm fantastic at it now, but it was one of the things that I took upon myself. My parents are amazing, but no one really played music in my house. We listened to a lot of music.
Yeah.
And my dad was a really great athlete, and I always tried to play sports, but I was always kind of small and I wasn't just really good at it. But once I started playing music, it's how you, like, all of a sudden it's the one thing that was fun and you got attention and it was exciting, and more exciting than anything else.
And it was something that you could do. You did excel at it. You did apply yourself.
Yeah, you just learn how to, like, I got really good at just like faking it, like still do. I mean, well, that's what you do. Like, I mean, you could be the most talented person in the world, but if you don't put yourself in the right situation and have the temperament and the personality to kind of snake through things, I mean, I
wish I'd have learned that lesson a long time ago.
Well, but that's probably the hardest part, because we both know the most talented. I mean, God, in Seattle, some of the most, any city, there's some of the most talented people will never hear, and they're incredible,
right.
And because family, you have kids when you're young, or you get married, or you have a job and you choose a different thing, but a lot of those people still play in bands, and somebody from South America is never going to hear, so-and-so here in Seattle. Right. And it's kind of just about what you put yourself into. Luck is a lot. Luck is a lot of it, I guess.
Do you think that's luck? I mean, this is a conversation that I've talked about, and it's a conversation I get hammered with on YouTube, because I talk about luck with someone in a podcast episode. And I have this stance that I don't really believe in luck. And, not in and of itself. Like luck by itself is like salt. Like, you're not going to put a fucking spoonful of salt in your mouth, but if you put a spoonful of salt in a giant pot of spaghetti that you cooked for 3 days, it's going to be fucking amazing. Way more amazing than either of those things were on their own. It's
a good point. I guess I look at it as luck. Just the random things I could go through the 5 stages. Like, it feels like I've had 5 stages of a musical life. Like, you know what I mean? In the first one, I was at a gas station at 3:00 in the morning with another guy, and this guy that I knew pulled up. He's like, "Hey man, what have you been doing?" "Oh, nothing." And he's like, "Hey, you still play?" "Yeah." "Well, there's this band that needs a bass player. You should go. I'll tell them you're coming down. You should go audition for them. They're great." And I'm like, "Okay, when?" He's like, "Tomorrow." I'm like, and there was no cell phones then. And this has been the story of my life. It seems like every gig I ever get, usually I never have a rehearsal or anything. I just kind of like whatever it is. But I showed up that next night with my bass and my amp to this rehearsal place. And then these guys showed up. I'm like, hey, I'm here. And they're like, who are you? I'm like, well, you need a bass player, right? And they're like, oh, you know, and that was luck. I ran into that guy in the gas station the night before, kind of. But I guess it was up to me to get to the rehearsal the next day and just put myself out there.
They didn't even know you were showing up.
No, but I did. And for some reason, I guess probably because of that band and probably that high school band of having to learn covers and do that stuff. And for some reason, I could always fake my way and learn a song really fast.
Was that the Rhino Humpers?
That was the first band, yes.
The band
so
that showed up at their rehearsal unannounced and said, I'm your new bass player?
Yeah.
That's amazing.
You know, I didn't say I'm your new bass player, but I showed up, you know, a little sheepishly and like, and I knew other people. And that's where I met Jeff Angel.
Right.
And we all practiced in that. This is 1989, I guess. And we all practiced and lived. Then I, you know, gradually within weeks was living there. And so was everybody else. And there was, you know, 50 people that lived. You hear about these rehearsals. The Music Bank in Seattle was another one of them. And it happens. You can find this rehearsal studio that for some reason lets a bunch of kids put couches in rooms. And there was one payphone and an AM/PM on the corner. And you just
lived on pepperoni sticks and fucking do.
Yeah, on Boone's Farm and cheap drugs and whatever it is when you're that age, and you learn what to do and what not to do, and that's kind of what that was all about.
You learn what not to do at that age?
I don't know. I guess I've always had you know when you're doing stupid shit.
Sure.
You know, regardless
I never really learned my lesson on the first go around.
No, I didn't learn. I don't know. I mean, it probably took me 30 years to learn my lesson. You make the same mistakes sometimes. Hopefully don't make some of the big mistakes, but you make the same mistakes.
Sure.
Figure out how not to make them in the times that are important.
So you were in the Rhino Humpers for a long time.
Well, I mean, it felt like 20 years. It was really 5 years.
5 years is a long time when you're 19.
It is.
Were you 19 or 18?
I was 19, just turned 20. On my 21st birthday, Brian Koloff, the guitar player, took me to the Vogue. I did my first acid on my 21st birthday, and we went to the Vogue. And I got so high that he had to take me out of the Vogue, and we walked down by where the Moore Theater was, and they were filming a dang movie, and it was River Phoenix was in this movie.
Holy shit. Was it My Own Private Idaho?
No, it was one. So he's like in the military. So I don't remember what it was. But all I know is we were so high we didn't really pay attention. And all of a sudden we were literally 5 feet behind the camera as we're shooting because we just were kind of really high and like nobody was. It was the middle of the night and we kind of just blended. I don't know how because it's Seattle and we just kind of blended in. I don't even know how I got on this thread, but that was my 21st birthday. I went to the Vogue.
For people who don't know, the Vogue was this like legendary bar.
Yeah.
Club. Bands played there.
Sure. That's where the original Mother Love Bone mural was on the side of it.
Right.
That Jeff Ament painted. And, I saw so many great, it was that period of time where I was the right age at the right time. And I was a South End kid, but you could be in a band and you just saw all these bands that now everybody, just legendary stuff. And, it was crazy. It was crazy.
Back then, was your band getting good gigs?
No, yeah, sometimes. But the thing about that time is you didn't really have to be a great band to get great gigs because people were flocking to Seattle. If you got a weekend gig, almost anywhere you played was pretty full.
Right.
Like you could play down at Pioneer Square, which is right downtown Seattle. And there was people that, I guess, if you weren't from here, you could get a wristband. I don't remember how much it was, but you could get a wristband and go to any club in Pioneer Square.
Yeah.
And you would meet people every Friday. I mean, and you could make $1,000 if you play, you know what I mean? Because you'd meet people from Australia and Europe, and like there's people everywhere. There was thousands
of CDs and shirts and
everything. Like it was crazy. And you just, we were good enough, and we were a party band, and it was super fun. And we hustled, and we all lived in a house together, and we made enough money playing gigs that we had a van, and we could pay rent, barely, and make merch. And we followed the what everyone was doing back then. You just put fuck or some kind of swear word on your t-shirt and people would buy it. And I just feel like, you kind of, I'm sure, remember all that time, but if you just played enough, and you could play 4 nights a week. You could play in Bellingham, and you could play in North Seattle, and you could play downtown Seattle. You could play in Tacoma, you could play in Olympia, you could play in Bremerton. And then if you really started networking, you could go to Portland. And then maybe you could find a hall gig in Centralia, and then, or down in, wherever it was. And all of a sudden you just start, we had that piece of paper with every phone number, and you just call and start booking ahead. And you played 3-4 nights a week, and you just kind of figured it out. And it was kind of it was our charmed time of playing music where you could get in front of people. There was a bar in Tacoma called the Red Roof Pub, and it was an old school roadhouse bar. It was on Highway 99, which before I-5, the freeway was there. That was the main thoroughfare. And there was roadhouse bars all up and down the West, all around the country.
Yeah.
And Red Roof Pub was a leftover from that. And all of a sudden, it was right by the military base. Music was super popular, and we sold that. I think it hold like 700 people, and we sold it out. Like, how a bunch of kids playing, we had a pop-up. We had this old Dodge van that had a pop-up top. That was our back. We'd park it right outside the back door. It would be like 20 people in there. And I don't know how. It was just a crazy, funny time,
Right. Do you remember? It was a really weird time because it was exciting, and there were a lot of bands, but then all of a sudden there became a tipping point, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there were too many bands.
Absolutely.
And there were labels everywhere, and they were just looking for the next thing, right? They were looking for the next Nirvana or Pearl Jam or whatever. And so, because everyone knew that, everyone started sounding like that.
Sure. And that's right around the time, I guess that would have probably been probably right past the tipping point. But when I quit playing in that band, it was right around probably end of 94, 95, somewhere in there.
Yeah.
It just got a little exhausting. It was, I got tired of living in a basement. I moved back into my parents' house for a second, and but just like luck has it, then I went to I started working at a cabinet shop in Auburn, Washington, and there was a music store in Auburn, and I walked in there. I was playing a guitar, and this guy named Jimmy Paulson walks in the door.
Yeah.
And Jimmy Paulson was another, he was in all kinds of cool bands. He was in New American Shame past this, and he's amazing.
Evans. Was he in Black is Black?
That was Brian Koloff was in Black is Black. Jimmy Paulson was in Tramp Alley.
Got it.
Who, on the very first gig, the first, I guess, what year is that? 88, Halloween of 88. I got a flyer. I was at a dance club, because I'd go to dance clubs too, because I love goth music and new wave music, and that was really cool to me. I didn't have an older brother, and I really didn't know where bands, where all ages shows were.
Right.
I'd go to arena shows, but I was at this dance club, and there's these two guys with huge white spiky hair and all stuff, and all these people they're handing out flyers. I'm like, what's that? This guy handed me a flyer, and it was Allison. It was Mother Love Bone, Allison Chains, Tramp Alley, and Black is Black at the Kent Skate King. I have the flyer. It's right here. I have the flyer and the set list around here someplace.
And the set list.
I have it both. I have Tramp Alley's set list, and I have and when you'd go, this guy gave me a flyer. I didn't know who any of the bands were. It was at the Kent Skate King. So we show up.
This is 89?
88.
Wow.
I believe it was 88. When you got to the door, the guy at the door, who I ended up meeting years later, Randy Hauser, this guy, you'd have to he'd circle on the ticket, he'd circle the name of the band that you were there to see, because he'd divvy up money at the end of the night according to, because he knew those guys were all out handing flyers. But my God, we walked into this Skate King. I've told this story many times, but it was like a light bulb went out. Like, I'm like, all of a sudden there was like 400 people and kids just like me. I had never seen that.
Right.
And it was incredible. And Black is Black was played first, and they were amazing. And they came out, and the first song they played, the curtain opened up, and they played Phoenix by the Cult. One of my favorite Cult songs. I'm like, what? Okay. And they were amazing. They were like kind of like Jane's Addiction, psychedelic. I was like, this is amazing. And then Tramp Alley came out, and they were like a punk rock, Faster Pussycat type of bluesy, sleazy rock and roll.
Yeah.
And then this next band came out, and it was Allison Chains, and Lane had a mohawk then. And they were incredible. And then Mother Love Bone.
They were a lot faster. Like, they had all the same songs, but they were like 15 BPM faster, right?
Yeah, and they weren't tuning down then. There was no drop D. I don't think there was drop D songs yet or anything. It was pretty punk rock, pretty rock and roll, still 88.
Yeah.
88, you know.
I've heard some of those demos, and they're killer.
They're amazing. Funny thing about that night is the bathrooms, so the dressing rooms were in the locker rooms. At skating rinks, they had locker rooms, you know, like if you went skating, you'd have to put your shoes in a locker.
Yeah.
Well, the bathrooms were always right outside those, but to get to the bathrooms, you'd have to walk by the locker room. And all night, you know, you'd go take a piss or whatever. But I would walk by this thing, and every time I'd walk by, there was this guy there all night, and he had a fur jacket on and this long blonde hair, and there was this gorgeous goddess of a woman. She looked like she was 8 feet tall, this long black hair, and she was brushing his hair. I'm like, what is that? And I'd come back a half hour later, and he'd be holding court, and I'm like, what? Like, this is like, I didn't know who it was. I didn't even know if, you know, that was Andrew Wood and Xana. And when he got up on stage, like, it was the cool Mother Love. I mean, Alice, that changed everything. Like, I got a flyer that night, and every weekend we were going to all ages shows then. Every
How many
weekend.
times did you see Mother Love Bone back then?
Saw him there. I saw him, let's see. Saw him at Legends in Tacoma. I'm at 4 or 5 times.
I bought that Shine EP
Mm-hmm.
at Budget Tapes and Records in Marysville, Washington, based on the cover. I thought it looked cool.
Mm-hmm.
And I loved it. I was just like, whoa, this is happening here. And they were quickly and easily my favorite Seattle band.
Yep.
But I never saw them. I never got to see them, you know?
They were I mean, it's like one of the things, well, I guess maybe a lot of these bands now that are kind of legendary in status, and, you know, obviously he was gone way too soon, but they were every bit as good as people say that they were to me. He was engaged, like, he was hilarious and awesome. He was Freddie Mercury and David Lee Roth and Sam Kinison, and I mean, I don't know, he was a comedian. He was a bigger guy, not big, but he wasn't like,
He wasn't.
he was just bigger than life. You know what I mean? And
do you think that he would have gone on to be a legend if he had?
I don't know.
You just never know, right?
I guess you don't know who. I mean, I don't know. You'd think that he would be. He was that.
I mean, he's a legend now.
Yeah. The funny thing is, it's funny years later. So as we're starting to play the Rhino Humpers a lot, and we met this lady named Susie Bridges who worked for Susan Silvers.
Yeah.
And she'd book nights. And if she was booking one of your nights, I think she managed like My Sister's Machine. I don't remember the lineage of the whole thing, but somehow we got the Mother Love Bone record release show. They weren't going to play, but us and remember Son of Man, that band?
Yeah,
Son of Man. Us and them were playing, and all of them were going to be there. It was going to be the record label's throwing. It was at Parker's, up on Parker's. It was in
99?
North Seattle. It was another Roadhouse bar that was on 99, just on the other side of Seattle. And he died like a couple weeks before that, and they still did the show. And a few of the guys from the band, I remember it was just one of the, like, it was like awful. It was like one of those, like, oh, like, it was sad.
My stepdad at the time went to treatment with him. He was in treatment in Monroe with him. And I never met him.
Yeah.
My friend Dave Clark went and visited, and he met him.
Yeah, I never met him. I never met him. I was kind of a little bit, I mean, at that point, I'm just jumping into these shows. I'm going to, starting to get into bands, and now we're playing, but there was, and that's, I don't know if people really realize that. I mean, I guess that's how music scenes work, but just because you're a part of the Seattle music scene doesn't really mean there was still factions. There's Sub Pop. I mean,
Sure.
There was a kind of thing, and I was just a stupid South End kid that opened my mouth too much, and
Right.
was in a band that was, weird, and like it was that kind of thing. We weren't really hip, but we were, one of the other 1,200 bands that were playing every week.
Here's a funny thing. In the world, I've not played, like, you are the person who I've played more gigs with than anyone else in the world.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, I would say that too.
Between Loaded and Alien Crime Syndicate.
Yeah.
I mean, together playing all the gigs collectively.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Nabil is probably a close second.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe. I don't know. But the funny thing is like, I was never in a hip band either. And Alien Crime Syndicate was never a hip band.
Oh God.
We were never celebrated by indie press.
No.
It was almost like we were tolerated, right?
Yeah.
And the truth is, when we joined Loaded, and when we joined Loaded in like 2000 or 2000,
Right.
yeah. Like, that wasn't hip either.
Oh God, no. Like,
people like in Seattle didn't really care, and it blew my mind, because I was like, this is pretty rad. But also, but just not hip, not like, not young and cutting edge. Like, if 20-year-olds were doing the exact same thing, somehow, it could have maybe been interpreted by the local community as hip. But
by the time Loaded kind of started, I mean, even like there was still, this is still area, like, what, Death Cab's still a kind of a local band. They're just starting to get, you know what I mean? The music scene in Seattle was still
pretty weird.
It was weird. Like, now not now this year, but back then you'd play for the same 200 people every week.
Right.
It didn't matter where you played. Was the Showbox was open then? Yeah, so Showbox was open. Not a lot of local bands were selling. I'm sure there was. Pretty Girls Make Great. There was some great. There's exceptions to this rule, but when Loaded started, we played shows for 10 people. Yeah.
Do you remember we played that weird? What was that place down in like Federal Way that we played?
Planet Hot Rod.
Yeah, Planet Hot Rod.
Yeah.
We probably played for what? 20, 25 people there.
Yeah. Alien Crime Syndicate. Alien Crime Syndicate. We went and did a tour with Nash Cato from Urge Overkill.
Yeah.
Alien Crime Syndicate and Nash Cato played there. I think there might have been 4 people there. So that place was notorious. Anyway. But yeah, Loaded, that's just kind of
Is that place still there?
It's a smoke shop now.
How do you? Of course it is.
You buy cigarettes. You drive through cigarettes.
They sell vape pens there?
I'm sure they do.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah.
Sure. How do you think that place? Do you think they were up to some shenanigans, maybe?
I don't know. I think, a lot of those clubs then, they had probably a little restaurant, and some kid had a PA or some guy that was, talked good enough, said, hey, I can get some bands in here on the weekends. At least we can sell some beer and and a couple hamburgers, and
Right.
the owner was probably like, okay, that's cool, I'll do that. You know, those places popped up. Those places were popping up everywhere, you know.
Right.
And the thing about Loaded is we kind of purposely, I mean, in a way, we sought out, we would find a couple of those places before we'd go on tour to like Japan or
Right.
something.
That one was specifically before a trip to Japan, right?
Correct. Yeah. Just to, you know.
Dude, can we talk about that for a minute? I've talked about this a few times, but that was our first time to Japan.
That was my first one.
And
Yeah.
it was bananas. It was that package tour, right?
Yeah.
With
Zilch.
the Zilch and Jay from
Mhm.
Lunacy, and who's a megastar there.
Yeah.
And
That's where we met Dave Kushner and
right.
Joey
Yeah.
and Sean from White Zombie and Ray.
Yep. Yeah. What a fucking good time. But do you remember? I mean, we played in arenas then. Like, that was an arena tour. First time to Japan, it was like the ultimate in Japan joke, right?
Everything about that whole trip was full of firsts. I mean, it was the first time I'd flown first class.
Oh, dude, I forgot.
And this is pre 9/11. So remember that the first class on that plane was at the nose of the plane.
Yeah, but on the belly, right?
Right. But there wasn't many people. And I just remember they were letting us like lay on the ground. Remember we were put blankets on the front?
But the seats went all the way down. You know, it was just like, it was. So for the record, for people who are listening, if you've never flown, like, you've all seen first class when you're walking to whatever seat you're sitting in.
Right.
Rarely, like, for the record, as a band, we did not fly first class almost ever, unless we could sweet talk someone into an upgrade. But on an international flight, and specifically one this long, because a flight to Tokyo is a lifetime.
It's a long flight.
It's almost like we had a hotel room with 8 lazy boys in it. Do you remember there was a fucking buffet in that little cabin?
I do. Like all of that.
They came around and fed us, but also you could just go back and get yourself a snack whenever you wanted.
Or a drink, or they'd give you a whole bottle.
It was insane.
And we got off the plane and there's people screaming.
Yeah.
And we went to remember we had to go the day before to have a pyro check.
Oh, dude.
Because we had pyro on stage.
I'm trying to remember if it was the first trip or the second trip, but it was like we were just jet lagged and just barely awake because the time difference is like 16 hours ahead. So you fly there, it's like evening when you arrive the next day, and you've been awake this whole time. And then they're like, okay, we have production dinner.
We have production dinner. Yes,
yeah,
what do you think is
production
food?
dinner? And you're like, okay, cool. And they're like, oh, it's just right over there. But it's like this like 50-story glass tower, and it was on the top floor. We went up there and had this dinner. I just remember feeling like I was on drugs. I was so sleep deprived. It was the first time I had Korean barbecue.
Yeah.
Really, some of the dinners were the most memorable part of that whole trip.
My whole life. I'll tell the story. Remember, was that in Osaka where we went to that? Remember they said we're going to take you to, it was all tuna. Remember it was like a house in the middle of like skyscrapers. We pull up to a house.
Yeah, it was
And
crazy.
there's one room, and there's only one room. You walk upstairs. There's only one table in the whole restaurant. They only serve one party at a time.
And you sit on the ground.
Yep, and you don't order anything.
Oh, dude.
It was like 20 courses of tuna, but it's the best food. It's still this day will be the best meal that I ever had was that particular dinner.
There were so many. Unfortunately, it kind of set the bar where I was like, this is what tour is like.
Yeah, in that band. Me and you
Right.
had done what me and you had done. We had been sleeping on.
Plenty of Taco Bell drive-thrus.
We would talk on a, we each on a van bench for years,
Yeah.
which was fine. And
Yeah.
but yeah, that was everything on that trip. We were treated so nicely, and having interpreters and all of this stuff, and
Yeah.
it was crazy. It was crazy. I'm so fucking thankful for every one of those moments.
What did you, I mean, when I came back, the next day I was back working at the coffee shop and enthusiastically and really excited about what we just did. But, at that moment, I think I was gone from Harvey Danger, but we were both still in Alien Crime Syndicate. We were doing both. And it just felt like I was on the fucking top of the world. Do you remember what you felt like when you came back from, because we did a fucking arena tour. I'd never played an arena. There was a curtain and everything. The curtain came open and it looked like the inside of Kiss Alive.
Yeah. And there was no YouTube.
Right.
And there's no social media. So I think people probably knew we went to Japan, but it wasn't like, hey, look at my selfie at the sushi restaurant in Tokyo, and look at this. Like, we came back, and
I didn't even have a cell phone then.
No, we just kind of came back, and I went back to work at the theater, and you were selling coffee, and we probably had a gig the next weekend with Alien Crime Syndicate, and probably, I think at that point I kind of think, my memory serves me right, I think we kind of thought maybe we'd do more shows, but generally, when I got asked to jump in and to do that, it was really kind of like, all I only really knew is that we were going to go to Japan.
Right.
I didn't know if anything would ever happen past that, and I didn't really care. I was like, great. I don't care. I'm open for experiences. And it wasn't, you also have to remember, truth be told, and being very honest, we were both in Alien Crime Syndicate, and I don't know if the other guys were super stoked on us doing that.
Right.
So I couldn't really, and I lived with Joe, and I couldn't really be going, woohoo, like I got home. There's still, looking back, and I haven't really thought about that, and all that's years ago and whatever, but I think at the time, I couldn't really act super excited about it. You know what I mean? Because there was also this other thing that we were doing, and me and you had to kind of walk on eggshells around that for a few years.
We did a lot of cool stuff, but in both bands,
Yeah.
Aliens, I've talked about this, and when Alien Crime Syndicate got a record deal, I thought, all right, well, fuck you, world. I'm here. The door is cracked open, and here we are to kick the door in, right?
Well, we found out about that record deal walking together in Japan on the second tour. Remember, remember me and you were standing on an overpass.
Yeah.
About 200 feet from the hotel, and we looked at each other like, what are we going to do? I have goosebumps right now. I haven't thought about this in a long time. But me and you had to make that decision together.
Right.
Whether we were going to keep playing with Loaded, or are we going to go home, and because we knew we couldn't do both.
Right. The thing is that Loaded only played probably 4 more gigs.
No, totally.
And one of them was with us.
Yeah, right.
In LA.
Yeah. Yep.
Right?
Mm-hmm. But still, that was a hard
Revolver thing was coming,
Yeah, yeah. Well, the best decision we ever could have done was to do exactly what we did. We didn't know Velvet Revolver was, that happened within weeks or whatever it was of us going, well, we're going to sign this record deal because then we're going to make a rock video, and we're going to go on. We went on to Sugar Ray, and we had you know what I mean? And
do you remember how much they spent on that fucking video?
I have in my files the paperwork for it.
It was over $200,000. Am I right?
It was like $250,000. But the director made that director made $40,000
for 2 days of work.
But why? I still wonder. We did a video, and they
2 days of work. It was one day.
No, it was one day. But they built, instead of just finding a club, they built a club inside of a warehouse.
Right.
That's how money was flowing back then. Like, you could have just found a club and we could have been on that. No, we need to find a building big enough, and then we're going to build the club inside the building for the video. And then we get there and there's makeup trailers and
what a yeah. Did I told you the nightmare story about how we were all coupled with those young girls, the models that were cast.
Yeah.
And the girl that I was like matched up with, that was supposed to be like partnered off with me or whatever, was just like, was some like, she was 15 and was from Florida, and her parents signed custody of her over to some talent manager. And I was just like, fuck, man.
Hollywood.
She pulled me aside and told me that, like, it was like, I don't know what her intention was. And I was like, this is not the way I thought this sneaky conversation was going to go. I thought it was going to be a lot sexier than this. I was like, what the fuck are you doing here? It was like, it was incredibly responsible of me, but it's also just like, I think the only possible moral response. I was just like, get the fuck out of here. Like, go home. Go.
Do you remember us being on tour and they faxed us?
Weird.
They faxed us a packet of pictures of models. They're like, okay, well, you need to have people. So here, pick out. Like, it was weird. Like, I remember, like, we had to like pick out. My memory fails me, but it was something like that.
Yeah, it was pretty weird.
That's I'm sure that stuff's still kind of
Hollywood is super. Yeah, so when all the who's the asshole, the filmmaker guy that was like,
oh yeah,
the diddling people.
Yeah. Harvey Weinstein. Yeah.
I mean, when that, I don't know why people were so surprised. I mean, I understand why people were outraged, but that people were surprised that some fucking dirty, sleazy, like no good bullshit like that was going on. It's just like, are you fucking kidding me?
Right. Well, in any kind of thing,
Men are great at fucking things up, buddy.
Well, there's always secrets.
Right.
I'm not saying secrets like that.
Right.
But in friendships, you have secrets. Sure. In workplace, you have secrets.
Right.
And whatever it is. And in that kind of a big of a thing where there's a bunch of old school men with their finger on, hundreds of thousands of people's careers and billions of dollars, power does weird things to people. And I get, that's crazy. But that day, we've seen glimpses of weirdness. You know what I mean? I lived in LA when I first joined Alien Crime Syndicate. I moved to LA to be in that band. And I got a call, just like everything else that I've done. I get a call, and the next morning I packed up my Volkswagen Rabbit with my bass cabinet and my bass and all my clothes, and I drove to LA. I mean, that's a typical story.
Right.
But I just jumped in it, and living there, going to industry party, it was like, it's a weird, I loved living there. There was a lot of stuff that was just, I'm so glad I did it, but come on, like, it was just, you start going to industry parties, then you're in a band or the record, and then everything, there's industry dinners, and then this, and then every night you could go to some party.
It's pretty hard to keep up with expectation, whether it's one that's on you or one that you have on yourself.
Sure. Especially,
if you're involved in that kind of a rat race.
Yeah. And, I think a lot of times I've been lucky that I've gotten into situations where maybe if I would have been a little bit younger, things would have been different, maybe in a bad way. Like, I've always been on the cusp of being a little bit older than, okay, well, like when I moved to LA, I was in my late 20s, I think.
Right.
Or mid to late 20s. If I would have been 18 and, jumping in on a bus and getting off at the LA Greyhound station, and you know what I mean? That whole thing.
Boots on.
without a gig, you know, like when I joined Alien Crime Syndicate, I knew I got $1,200 a month and I had a place to live.
Right.
So, I could figure that out, and that wasn't struggling, but there's kids that go there, coming from nothing, or no families or whatever, and you just show up there and a beautiful, God, we'd meet even just like young 18, 19-year-old boy, like at gig, like whatever, just playing it in like little rock star. They don't even have a band. They're just, some agent like, wow, you should be a singer in a band. He can't sing, but he looks amazing, and this is before this is it's creep. It was really super creepy, but I'm glad I moved there. I'm glad I did it.
You're also glad you don't live there now.
Pretty glad.
Yeah. Do you remember I considered moving there twice?
I remember.
Different times.
I remember.
And
it was right around the time we were making that video. Was one of them.
Yeah, that's true.
I remember the conversations. We've spent a lot of time. Me and you spent a lot. Every time me and you go to LA, we always were together.
We're hitting. What's that place that we like to eat at?
Versailles.
Oh fuck.
That's one.
Man, that place is so good.
Roscoe Chicken and Waffles.
That's another one.
God, I don't know.
Those are my two spots. Those are the two. That's
the
two.
Yeah.
That's the big two.
Yeah.
Do you have a favorite memory of all the loaded things that we did?
I do.
Really? That was quick and easy.
It's easy because I always know. It's when me and you, we had a day off and me and you went to South America and rented motorcycles.
Right.
It's still, to me, doesn't matter. It's probably the coolest thing in my whole life that I've ever done.
It was
music or whatever it was. Like that, for some reason, when I think of memories, it doesn't matter of like, what is one of the greatest days in your life? Not even in Loaded. Like there was something about that day.
Well, here's the thing about that day. And that day stands as one of the most incredible days of my life. Right?
Mm-hmm.
I didn't even think, for whatever reason, I didn't even think about that. But we flew to Santiago, Chile from Europe. It was a 3-leg tour, right?
Yep.
We did a UK tour with
Alice Cooper?
Huh?
Is that with Alice Cooper?
I don't think so. We did
No, we did a small
club run.
Club run, yeah.
We did a club run of our own. Then we flew to South America. Well, no, because we also did a show in Holland with Down and a show in.
Oh, you're right. We did. Yes. Yeah, we did.
We played where? In Holland and in Copenhagen or
something like that.
Then we flew to South America, and I feel like Santiago was our point of entry.
It was, because remember, Duff had to stay back because he was going to do an award show.
Right.
Maybe he was going to like host like whatever, the Classic Rock Awards or something.
Got it. Yep.
So me and you got offered the thing, like you could stay in London for a couple days, or you could just fly ahead and go to South America.
And we did, and we rented motorcycles.
Yep. We somehow, before we were at the airport, we got this wild hair, and I think we talked about it, and then somehow we emailed ahead and say, is there any place that we could rent Harleys?
Yeah.
And by the time we landed, it was sorted out.
It's so incredible. If we were there touring with Alien Crime Syndicate, no way, Jose.
No.
Right? But
no, of course not.
But that was one of those things where, all right, well, you're playing with Duff, and they just see Duff motorcycles and they say yes, and they figure it out. So yeah, I think, they were kind of expensive to rent, right?
Yeah, we didn't pay for it.
Oh no, that's not true.
Well, did we do that? Remember they wanted us to pay like a $10,000 deposit or something?
Yeah, no, we didn't do that. We didn't have to pay a deposit.
Did we? I can't remember. I don't really remember. I'm sure I paid for it then. I don't remember.
We did rent the motorcycles, yeah.
Okay. I don't
You
remember.
had a Street Glide or a Road King,
I had a Street Glide.
and I had like one of those fucking night bobs or whatever.
Yeah, you wanted that thing, that
Well,
crazy.
that was just the thing that they had. And
Yeah.
also I wasn't ready for the Road King yet. I was just like, oh, it's kind of big and you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was an incredible day. We woke up early.
Yeah, we did.
We fired those things up. I mean,
Well,
we
first
were
we
on
went to the
motorcycles.
office. First, we went to the office in the hotel and printed out a little tiny, because our phones weren't working.
Right.
I
Well,
don't think
GPS wasn't what it is now anyway.
No. And I knew very little Spanish. You knew enough. And we printed out a little tiny thing with a pen. It's like, okay, maybe we'll try this route. And we got some advice. And we just kind of got up at like 4 a.m. and headed towards the coast.
You remember we crested this mountain range, went through, and it was warm where we
Yes,
were.
it was. Mm-hmm.
And we went through a tunnel. We got to the other side of the tunnel, and I didn't have a sweatshirt on, and it was fucking cold as shit.
Yeah.
We had to pull over, bundle up some, and we rode all the way to the water, up the coast. It was a absolutely full and complete day of riding. We stopped at one point at a weird little we got sandwiches somewhere and sat.
We got ham and butter sandwiches and a little tiny bottle of Coke, and we sat outside in a little tiny it wasn't even paved. I don't think.
No.
We just sat on the little sidewalk, and I remember that we just sat there and we're eating. That lady made us sandwiches, and we got a bottle of Coke, and we were just it was so weird. It was magical. All of it
was incredibly. In a world where you're sort of on rails and you don't, and it's just all right, the train speeds up and slows down, but it never deviates from the rails, right?
Exactly.
That was an incredibly liberating day. And sometimes I've been on other motorcycle rides and solo and with other people.
Sure,
and a lot of times solo feels like the most freeing stuff, right? Because you're not tied to anyone else's thing. But that was an incredible day. Do you know do you remember we stopped at one point and I asked in my super basic Spanish skills for directions, and a guy drew us a map on the back of a receipt?
Yep.
I still have it.
That's awesome. I remember that. That was before we started heading up the mountain up into those little passes.
Yeah.
It was that one last gas station. He's like, oh, and we were lucky. He's like, oh, whatever it was. And we only had to drive a few more miles and take a right. And then we started heading up in the hills.
A few years later, there was a terrible fire down there.
Yeah, I remember hearing about that.
On that coastline.
Yeah.
I
was just looking at my phone because I had a picture that I love that I've kept. I don't want to spend time looking for it. But remember when we got back, everybody, I think Duff and all the Allison Chains guys heard that we got Harleys, and they went and rented all the rest of them.
Yeah. And then we went on a fucking traffic stopping ride through town.
Which was not fun.
Really. No, I
Really.
didn't love that.
No. But that was one of my favorites. My favorite times. Also, one of my and it's funny. My other favorite time is when me and you had a day off in Prague, and we took.
Oh, dude.
Remember we walked. We must have walked 20 miles that day. Remember on one side of Prague, we looked on the other side, and there was that hill of all those apple trees.
Yeah.
And we're like, we got to go there.
So oh, that doesn't look too far away.
It took us all I just remember when we I think we almost took naps. We were just laying. It was a really cool day too. We've played a lot of cool shows, but the stuff that I kind of really remember are some of the few times that we've had. Because when you're on tour, every day. I mean, it's amazing and it's super fun and it's the blessing of my life that I've been able to tour as much as I have, because it's really brought me the discipline and being centered. It's the only that touring is one of the only things that I can do where things just television, everything's okay. It's like a daily schedule, but you don't get many days off. Right. And when you do, a lot of times maybe it's laundry or sleep or just finding food. But me and you have been lucky enough to be in some crazy places where we actually go to explore and just kind of like, and that doesn't happen very often. I mean, I like,
Was that trip to Prague the Motley Crue tour? We played with Motley Crue in Prague.
that wasn't that tour. We had a day off, and I want to say this was
The Iron Maiden festival where you got the Misfits shirt
that's the one.
from Jerry. Yeah.
That's the one. That's the one.
What
Which was one of those couple days, like that little span of those few days are pretty. I mean, we played with Iron Maiden and Judas Priest within like 72 hours or something. I don't remember, but it was insane.
I sat up in the lighting platform above the soundboard.
I was up there with you for quite a while. Remember, we climbed up there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I had bought that little Zoom camera
Yeah.
stereo condenser, and I filmed a bunch of Iron Maiden,
Mm-hmm.
and it was like misting. And you remember, there was always that point, like at 2 weeks, like between 1 and 2 weeks of being into a tour, and that's where we were at.
Mm-hmm.
Where I was always like, I was always a little. It was a hard transition for me.
Well, you got to find your legs. Getting your tour legs is a weird phenomenon.
But I fucking sat up there and cried, man.
Yeah.
Because here I was, we had played there earlier that day, and then here was Iron Maiden playing.
Yeah.
And that was the first, Iron Maiden and Twisted Sister was the first metal concert that I ever saw.
Was that Loaded, The Misfits, Mastodon, and Iron Maiden?
Yeah.
Wait, hold on.
You have the poster? You know what poster I just fucking unearthed is the one from Italy, the Twisted Sister Iron Maiden thing. And I actually hit up Redding and I was like, hey, do you still have that? Do you still have the picture of us with Twisted Sister? You're not in the picture.
No,
Fucking a corn dog or something.
probably.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was super fun. I mean, God, that was Loaded 1.5 or something. I mean, we Loaded. I mean, over 20 years, Loaded had different things, and that was still kind of the middle of the beginning, I guess. That
Right.
tour. And yeah, I just there's just so many stories. I just remember walking in, and the Extreme guys saw Duff walk in, and they were like bailed out pretty quick.
Really?
Well, it was because it was the first time they had seen Duff since they played the Freddie Mercury thing.
Yeah.
When Guns N' Roses played. And the story, I don't know, it's not my story to tell, but there was a story about Duff and Matt. I think they had a dressing room at Wembley or whatever, but it was right next to Extremes.
Yeah.
And I think Duff and Matt were pretty wasted and like giving them hell and throwing stuff over the top or whatever.
Right.
But this is kind of the beginning of knowing Duff too. And I remember Duff immediately going, oh man, I need to say something to those guys because that wasn't cool.
That's one
Duff,
thing about Duff is that he would go and do that.
he did. We've seen him do that many times, and I just thought that was super cool. But like, anyway, that was, yeah.
Do you remember how fun it was to hear the Twisted Sister guys talk? Because you only hear the one guy. You only hear Dee Snider talk, and he doesn't have like a hard East Coast, Long Island, New Jersey accent. Those other guys sound like fucking midtown construction workers when they talk, and it's
kind of look like
incredible.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I was just fucking mesmerized.
Yeah, that was fun. That was a fun trip. And so weird.
So let's jump forward. So this whole time, like you always have a rock room, like you have, like what we're seeing behind you, as long as I've known you.
Yeah.
And you've always been just sort of plugging away and recording demos and doing things, and you're like, well, whatever, it's just a thing. I'm not just doing a thing, whatever. I'm just recording it for my enjoyment. Mm-hmm. And then through how many different iterations of because some of the core members have sort of like staggered in and out, right?
Well, if it's there's a handful of guys. We live here in Seattle, so there's a lot of guys that I love to play with. A lot of people, not guys and girls that I love to play with. And the Gemini wasn't really supposed to start that way, but Keith Ash is kind of
right.
It's been kind of my partner through this. I just we kind of have the same sensibilities and other stuff. Keith is a really great bass player, but he also grew up with a lot of, through all this other stuff, the music that was really trying to kind of, just early, like The Cure and early, like that kind of that post-punk era of stuff. He was part of that scene, and that's still that kind of thing. And it was just kind of natural because I hadn't, kind of, if I'm not skipping ahead too far, after I kind of got into my head that this is actually something I'm just going to release, a lot of that first records, that first EP, it's still a lot of it's me playing bass on it.
Yeah.
A good bit of it. But I knew as soon as I figured out, like, okay, well, I'm actually going to play a few shows, I knew I wasn't going to play bass. And I didn't think of anybody. Keith was already kind of in there with me doing this stuff. I'm like, well, Keith's playing bass. And he played stuff he played on that first EP was just beautiful. Like, he played fretless bass, and I'm like, oh, whatever. He's great. And he's just a really centered, he's just great. He's fellas, but I had played with him in other bands too, and so I already kind of knew him and all of that stuff.
Are you allowed to talk about what's coming?
Sure. Yeah, of course. So yeah, I don't really have the weird thing about this year is
is there only one weird thing about this year?
No, it's all weird. But this record was done, and I think we had a show where I was kind of the beginning of this cycle was the Friday that they shut everything down in Seattle. So Thursday night, I had a conversation with Ryan Waters, who plays with my guys in the band, and they were talking about, wow, this thing's really happening, and they're going to shut stuff down. And we made the decision on Thursday night to cancel the show, and the show hadn't been canceled, so the record was going to come out, and then, I think a lot of us just thought maybe it was going to be a couple months, then maybe things are going to get back to normal-ish. And that just hasn't happened, and so I've just been kind of sitting on the record. I'm like, well, at that time, I'm like, well, I don't really want to waste all this time that I put in this new EP. But not that it would be a waste, but I kind of wanted to play a show or, do the stuff and do it the same way I was going to do the other one, which is just kind of release it on my own and play a few shows and move on to the next one. Because kind of the whole idea was not to be I only wanted to play shows I wanted to play when I wanted to play them and not do them very often.
Fuck, playing both.
And then all of a sudden now we can't play. But right around that time, Mike McCready and his guy Chris Adams, who do Hockey Talkter, he puts out singles and stuff, and he had heard a couple little clips, and he's like, hey, I want to put something out. I'm like, well, cool, what do you want to? He's like, I don't know, you just pick a couple songs, I'll press the record, and blah blah blah, all this stuff, and which is super awesome of him. I love Mike, and he's been very generous and nice to me over the years, and he helps a lot of other bands out too. So he's putting out a 7-inch, which is done. We're just kind of waiting. There's just there's some other things. There's health of people, not Mike or whatever, but there's just factors. And then this other guy, Marcus, who approached me during the last EP, and he has a little label in LA now and kind of in Nashville called G4L. He wanted to be a part of it as well. So with both of these guys, G4L is going to put out the EP and Mike's going to put out a single. We filmed a video for it, and it's all going to be happening within the next 6 weeks.
That's great.
And it's super cool, and that's probably gonna be what it is. I mean, maybe we'll film one more kind of video thing. We have a couple ideas. I don't know what else I can do for that. It's not the kind of band that suits itself for me sitting on a couch with acoustic guitar and playing the song. That's not kind of why I did it, and God bless everyone that can do that really great. It's not how I want to represent these songs.
Sure.
So just a couple good videos, and Don Gunn, who helps you so much, plays drums on a lot. So does Sean Zeller, and Don produced it again. And I build these little ideas here, and then Keith and Don really help flesh them out, I guess, with me. And I trust them. I mean, it's cool to do everything yourself, but it's cool to have a sounding board as well.
I find it to be imperative.
Yeah. It's been really great. It's a great little team. And I'm super proud of what we did, but I think kind of what I just want to do now is have all these other songs and just get this out. And after, I don't know what is happening in the world. So.
Oh, that's the only reason I had you on. I thought maybe you knew what was going on.
Well, I know what's going on in my world, and it's okay. It's okay. I'm glad, and I'm glad so many of us are still healthy, because a lot of people that we know aren't. So it's not imperative to me. I'm not worried about playing shows. I'll play shows again when shows are cool to play. And I can keep recording my music here. And when it's time and it's safe to go into a studio, I've done a few sessions that were really, when it kind of things kind of took I've done a lot of stuff this year, which is I played some bass, this band, Losi Stellar, an amazing Seattle metal band. I played a bunch of bass with them, and with Kim Byron. I've been recording with Kathy Moore, and I did a session at London Bridge, which was great. It was kind of at the downturn when things were kind of in the safety, and it was really cool. We were all kind of separated, and that's the only thing I've done, and I don't feel comfortable doing that right now again. Things are really bad, and so to put out, I'm super stoked to put out the music, and I hope people like it. I do it because I like it, really. That's the whole idea why I started doing it.
The 7 inches, 2 songs.
Yeah, 2 songs.
And the EP is 6.
6, yes, 6 songs. And it just seemed like when I was doing all that stuff, it just EPs seemed to be cool. Me and you have talked about that stuff a lot. I can put out full record, but people's attention span EPs work good for me, and I can kind of hone in on 5 or 6 songs that really I feel focused well together and call that good.
Here's the thing. I mean, I think that you could record a full album and release one EP, go out on tour, release the second EP, go tour somewhere else, and come back and tour the first place again for the second EP. It's a way better model than releasing a record, I think.
You've kind of been,
especially because the physical, printing an EP, like a 12-inch EP, costs the same amount as printing a full-length album.
Yeah, it really does.
But everyone talks about how vinyl sales are up. That's great. I love vinyl. You know that. For as long as you've known me, I've been a vinyl head. But who cares? Music is more consumed digitally, so it doesn't matter. You might as well release a single every week for a year, or whatever, every week over the course of your planned tour, and then your tour actually has created some other mystical,
It's funny, you've been talking like this for years, kind of, about EPs. You were talking about EPs before. I remember there was a conversation we had Loaded and stuff like that. And you've talked about that, and it's very true.
I think when I worked at CD Baby, I saw a glimpse of what was to come. I had no idea it would be like this.
Yeah.
In 2008, I heard about Spot. I mean, I knew what Spotify was, but Spotify wasn't what Spotify is now.
Yeah.
But there definitely was that moment when I wanted to do that. Do you remember my idea of doing the split EP?
With Steve Jones?
I still think it's a genius idea.
It's if you could ever make that happen, it would be amazing.
If anyone can make it happen, it's me. I am
Yeah,
too dumb to give up.
yeah, you're very persistent and you're sweet about it in a jagged kind of way.
You know,
You
you
know,
can take the boy out of Granite Falls, but you can't take the Granite Falls out of the boy.
it's true. It's true. I mean, what do you think? So that I'll put this stuff out here. We're all still going to be trying to be safe. The music industry is going to take a while to touring. I mean, it's going to take a while. Fact, I mean, we know people are out there playing shows and doing stuff, and whatever you think about that is whatever you think about that. But I'm not going to do that. But it's going to take a while. So, but is there going to be this flux of a lot of music? I mean, people are starting to trickle stuff out. Doesn't seem like a lot of bands are, though. There's a lot of stuff that comes out, but there's a lot of stuff that's just coming out, kind of great quarantine sessions, like people,
right.
There's a lot of that stuff, which is keeping people busy.
But is there more music coming out than there would have if 2020 looked completely different? Like if 2020 as we know it never occurred? I don't know.
I don't know either. There'd be a lot more touring because that's how bands were making money and not necessarily release music. So that's what I'm kind of wondering is like, are we going to, when bands start touring now, whenever that is, are we going to see our favorite huge bands come out and playing deep cuts? Because like, okay, we can come out and play, but God, a lot of tours got canceled. Are those tours just going to fire back up now? Like, I'm so confused. And like how that's going to, I'm sure these bands are too, I
mean, can you imagine the insurance policies that people have to take out when this stuff starts to happen again? Like, forget it. There's going to, like, how many people are going to squeeze into the showbox?
Yeah.
100? 100?
How are you going to keep 100 people separated at a...
You would have to charge $300 a ticket to hit production cost.
Yeah.
I don't know. I have no fucking idea.
I don't know. I don't know what the answer to any of that stuff is. I've just gotten so numb to it. I can't even imagine going. I mean, I'm different. Me and you've played music. I mean, we like to go to shows. We go to shows that have bands that we love. But like, I wasn't really going out just a lot anyway to go to shows. And so to sacrifice going to shows so I don't get sick and don't get my parents sick or my family here or whatever is not a big deal. I work I go to work. I wear a mask all day long.
Yeah.
Fine.
Why do you bother dyeing your beard?
Well, I don't know.
Just dye it around here.
Yeah, right. Right.
You might start a new trend.
That's going to be a weird, I've thought about this a lot because one thing that I think about is you get used to now not showing your face to people. And I've kind of always done that because I've always had my hair long. So it's always kind of an easy way to hide my insecurities about whatever I have, right? But with a mask, it almost even amplifies that. Like it's cool that I get to see your face right now, but it'll be weird for me to go to the grocery store. I don't know, just whatever. Like, you don't say hello to people really anymore. Like in the grocery store, I'm kind of a friendly guy. Like, hey, good morning, how's it going? Whatever. But even down the street, like, hey, but like now, like it's just created this distance, emotional distance.
But there's a whole level of facial expression lost.
Right. Yeah.
So you have to like exaggerate your eye expression.
Yeah.
It's like you fucking see someone and you're like,
right. Yeah. Yeah.
They can't see you smile. They can barely hear you talking.
I guess what the end point I've found some comfort in that in a way. Like in a weird kind of way where like it's almost
isolationist is
because I kind of as I've gotten older, like, and it didn't really start as much until, and I think I was always like that, but until I started taking touring gigs outside of the bands that we've been talking about, where I started to like, okay, now I'm out here touring with the band and these guys are all great, but I'm like kind of on my own here. I'm on my own. And that's kind of how the Gemini Affair thing stuff started it's how it really came to life for me. It's like, okay, well, and I'd come home from tour because I would do touring with these other bands and I'd come home only for a few days. Maybe I'd work, but it would just be me and my dog. And so this isolation thing kind of started. And that's kind of how the Gemini stuff started. That's really, and the subject matter of it even is kind of about that.
Right.
And then it's kind of just seeped into my life in the last 4 years a lot. I mean, I have the most beautiful girl and child here. Everything, my life is not like that at the moment. And I'm so grateful for that in every way. Like, I can't believe it. It's amazing. But there's still part of me that likes to be left alone. And the mask and the mask.
I don't know the feeling at all.
Well, you know what I mean. But the mask is kind of on the outside has kind of been like almost kind of easy.
Right.
And that's scary in a way. Like where, like, oh, like it's going to be an emotion. It's going to be a weird thing in the next year or two to come through this and see the lasting effects it's going to have on a lot of people, I think. I mean, we all, in so many different ways, mental health is, a real thing. And I've said it before you, I think the only thing, the one thing that any of us can do is just help kids. If you have kids in your house or kids in your family or whatever, they're the ones, we created this fucking mess.
Right.
And
nobody wants to admit it, but
no, we created this fucking mess and the ramifications of all this stuff. These kids haven't. These kids are trying to go to school or can't go to school, and they're, and even 5-year-old here, he knows there's stuff going on, and that's the one thing that all I can do is try to make sure that he's good.
Right.
All these kids, and guys I work with, they all have kids in schools or preschools and all this stuff. And, they're going to have to, and it'll be, man, in 10 years when these kids are now teenagers that went through this, it's just going to be so interesting. What a fucking shit show this is. I guess the point of all this stuff is music is super important to me. And, making music is always going to be something I do, whether it's just right here and I send you a song man, I did this song. And, but I guess this year's kind of just taught me it's not really that important to me.
But I mean, for years though, you and I have had this joke kind of making fun of ourselves, or it's saying oh, we got to go it's showtime. Oh, I got to go get some attention.
Right.
Or look at me.
Yeah, totally. That's part of it. And, I mean, yeah.
But really what we're saying is we're going to go have fun. And it's almost like being a stage actor or something, except not.
Yeah.
You go up there, you do a song and dance, and and then you go back and you watch Goodfellas in the bus or whatever.
Yeah, and then we go home and we go back to work.
And then go back to work. Yeah, exactly.
To pay for all the time you're taking. I mean, you know what I mean? It worked twice as hard so you can pay for when you were gone.
There's a fine line between taking your treating what you are doing and giving all of your time and energy to with respect, but not taking yourself or it too seriously.
Mm-hmm.
And I think as a young person, I didn't get that.
No. And I've fallen, there's been times, me and you have always been pretty realistic about that stuff. And there's been times over the last 20 years where I've kept falling. I'd fall back into that a little, oh, this is pretty cool again. This is, but I mean, reality kind of always comes back around, and that's just, you get excited and it gets to be real fun. And you start, it just gets to be fun. You just get into that tunnel vision, that thing I keep talking about. But we always have that thing where, I mean, you're the one other person. I mean, I guess, you're just one of those other people I knew that always had another job. Always.
Oh, dude, the day when I got home,
Yeah.
my whole thing, always, even, like, even
Yeah.
before the Sugar Ray thing, it was like, look, man, 15 minutes goes by pretty quick.
Yeah.
You think you're on top of the world right now? Well, fucking don't look down, because that shit's coming quick.
For real.
You know?
And funny thing is with me and you, I guess those 15 minutes keep poking their heads out every once in a while. And we're just lucky,
Goddamn time.
But coming, it's just like, and maybe that's part of, maybe being older and really this year kind of putting things into perspective. And I can actually now for the first time look and go, well, if I'm not going to, I'm not saying it's going to happen, but if I'm not going to play another show again,
right,
I can look back and go, well, that sucks, but fuck, man. Like, fuck.
When you look back from this point in your time, in your life timeline, and you think about 14, were you 15 when you went to the Skate King?
I was 18. I just graduated. I was 18.
Oh, you were old.
Oh, yeah, I was just graduated. It was this right after the summer of graduating high school. So that would be, I graduated in 87. So it was that year.
So it's 48 years ago.
Yeah, exactly. It was a long time ago. It was a long.
Can you imagine all of the amazing shit that you've got to do because of music?
Right. Yeah. It's crazy. It's crazy. It is crazy. It's really weird. It's really weird. I've sometimes, me and you tell stories, like you tell stories, you like to talk. That's why you have this fun, you have this thing, but like we have I think even the guys I work with and people I know, they're like, really, like, I think they kind of roll their eyes now. It's like, if something comes up, like, I don't like some band, it seems like like any kind of modern rock band or any kind of rock band, if something comes up, like, it kind of feels like we might have a story about it. Like, they'll even ask me, like, oh, so you probably have a Motorhead story, or you must have a
story.
Have you ever heard of Hanoi Rocks? Yeah, I have a pretty good story. You know what I mean? Or whatever it might be, like, right. Or Future Plate. Like, where did you get Future Plate? Oh, I got a story about that.
You're like, do you know about this band? Oh, yeah, we kicked them out of our dressing room once for being dicks, or for being whatever, too drunk, or our stagehand guy smoked that guy's bodyguard arm wrestling.
Right. That video did you see it? Someone posted it this week?
No.
Dude, it's online. When we get
really?
Yes, I'm forwarding. Hold on. Wait. I have a Dropbox folder that I got. I'm sorry, I haven't talked to you since I got it. I have a Dropbox folder with a bunch of footage from that tour on my phone right now. And
Get the fuck out of here. Who sent that to you?
Here it comes. Wait, hold on.
Wait a minute. Who sent it to you? Is it fair game?
I don't know. He posted it. I won't say the name right now. He was one of the guys that was on tour with us, one of the crew guys that was doing the filming. Yes.
Oh, amazing.
I think, where is it at? I'm going to have to find the messages when we
got phone. Remember what a shit show that whole tour was?
Absolutely. Yes. Should we tell that? Yeah. What time is it?
It's 9:10. Our bus broke down. We had a miserable drive from Paris to Milan.
Milan.
And then we had a 15-minute drive the next morning from our hotel to the venue. And we got lost, and 3 hours later we showed up 10 minutes before our set time.
Yep. Well, we should this tour was set up on this whole thing. There was a production company that wanted to film a reality show about a crew. So
we were like the background. It wasn't a reality show about us at all.
It wasn't about us at all. And the reason really why we did it, and the crew was a bunch of characters. And the reason, one of the main reasons that we did it was because they were going to pay for the crew and the crew bus. We had our own bus.
Right.
Whole summer.
A free crew.
Don't have to pay for the crew. And
no crew on the bus.
There was 4 of us on that bus, remember? And the driver.
Worst crew ever.
Purposely put together to make for entertainment value only. My bass tech, who was a gentle, sweet man, had one eye and was partially deaf, and his name was Socket. And if you're out there, buddy, I love you. But everyone was great, but it was built on so they could film these guys day and night being characters.
Do you remember who my guitar tech was?
Tom.
Tom fucking Mayhew.
I know.
He's got no business touching a guitar.
Nope.
All respect to Tom and all of his years of of touring with guns. No business.
Isaac was the only one that made out like a bandit on that because luckily we had Aaron out Mlasco with us. And he's the real deal.
Yeah.
And somehow he didn't lose his mind during that tour because he had to ride with them. But so everybody out there, so we were on this is a European festival tour. So we're doing it's crazy. Download, Rock am Ring, Rock and Park, Sweden Rock Festival. Gods of Metal, like it's most of these things. I think
all this shit. That was the tour. That was when we did Prague, wasn't it?
Yeah.
With Maiden.
And so we had toured quite a bit, but knowing that we didn't have to pay for the crew and we got our own bus was going to save us a little bit of money and a little bit of headspace was pretty awesome. Little did we know that the craziness that would go on around us would almost make it more difficult. But we did it.
I'm going to tell a story publicly for the first time right now.
Okay.
I was at that Milan show was so fucking gnarly because we loaded our own shit on the stage right off the bus because we were that tight. I mean, I think we might have even gone on 5 minutes late. And it was it ended up being a great day. Remember we hung out with the Mr. Big guys.
Oh, they were sweet. Yeah.
And
Richie Faulkner, I think,
Priest played, Whitesnake played. It was a fucking great day. But Cradle of Filth played. Mm-hmm. And I don't know anything about Cradle of Filth. Their guitar player and I have interacted a little bit on recently on Instagram, and I'm hoping to get him on the podcast and to do an episode. But I didn't know anything about the band except that a guy that I knew who's like a special guy, like a like a mentally challenged guy, special needs guy, is a huge metalhead, and he told me a story about how, and who knows if it was true now that but in that moment, so I used to take this guy to see metal shows
here in Seattle.
In Seattle, yeah. Huge metalhead. You never find a bigger metalhead, and he would buy. Even if he already had them, he would buy every CD and every T-shirt at the shows. But like I said, he's special needs, and he would destroy his shit because he was basically like a perpetual 9-year-old, right? Well, he told me a story once. Who knows if it's true? That Danny Filth ridiculed him from the stage and for headbanging and thrashing and stuff, which I've seen him do, and it is not normal looking. It's it looks a little disturbing, but it's dude is just letting his freak flag fly. He's just doing his thing. And I don't know if it's true or not, but that show, the moment that everything turned around for me, and I'm telling the story and it's really funny, but also I'm also at the same time I'll apologize to Danny Filth for this.
I remember I was right here. I tell the story. I was right next to you. I mean, not
I was there's that motherfucker that made my buddy cry. My buddy that's a really vulnerable, guy that you don't make anyone cry, but Jesus fucking Christ, like. So anyway, I fucking cornered this guy, and Danny Filth is not a big guy, and I basically made him film an apology story to this guy, and so whatever. Danny, I'm sorry, I was a dick to you. It's a fucking seriously, I was having a shitty day, and I don't even know if what this guy told me was true. You told me it wasn't, but I said to you, nah, I think we're going to make a video. I'm such a cock, but he made this video, and I sent it to this guy, and when he watched it, Danny says, hi, and, he waved at it like we were having a conversation. So that to paint a clearer picture of who we're dealing with, but I don't know if Danny is a cool guy or a dick, but he did a cool thing to make that guy happy.
It was. I remember that. It was cool. And do you think
I got a bunch of videos that whole tour? I got the other guys in the band.
Yeah.
And I got one from Phil Anselmo that was epic. And I got one from Phil Campbell. It was great.
I think, that's the thing about touring is sometimes we've always handled it. Like we're lucky. And I guess I've always been lucky with any of the bands that I've been out on tour with, whether I knew them or not. You get nothing crazy, like tempers. It never gets crazy, like never confrontational fighting on the bus or, you know what I mean? Nothing too, but man, you get so tired. And sometimes, like I remember, like we were all pretty tired that day. We were frustrated. We were tired, and that's a perfect storm for something like that, especially if you see that guy and that triggers that memory. You might not be that Mike today. Like if you walked out of your whatever.
I've had a lot of opportunity to learn patience since.
Well, I know sometimes that's the one thing about doing that, and I guess it's anything you do in life when you're that tired. Sometimes you're going to react maybe a little bit more differenter.
In the moment, I felt like I was doing a right and good thing, and I felt like it was deserved. And looking back on it, I feel like it was kind of a bully move, and I regret it, and I'm sorry for it.
Yeah. I think we all do that. We all we all make mistakes like that. Sometimes we get caught up. I guess we'll just keep it on the music side of things. But when you're out doing that kind of stuff, I mean, I don't know. Somehow, me and you have we ever had our moments?
We've never even had an argument.
It's weird. I mean,
I remember we've been short with each other. But here's the thing: is that even when one of us is grumpy, we can, like, as opposed to anyone else that I've ever known in my life, if there's some grumpy tension rolling up, one of us can just be like, why don't you fuck off?
Right.
And then it's just like, it's like mist that blows out of a room, and all of a sudden it's fine.
Yeah. I think, and I've talked to Joe about, like, at the end of Alien Crime Syndicate, there was some moment, there's been a couple times at bands where I wish I could take some stuff back, but not like nothing that you can't come back from.
Right.
You know what I mean? But at the moment when you're so tired and you're playing music and you're touring, and I guess a lot of those moments probably happened more for me when I was in a van and not taking care of myself. We were so lucky and loaded, and I learned so much. I couldn't have kept doing things past loaded or through loaded without learning so much stuff from Duff about how to approach yourself when you're on tour. And he was never a spoken thing, but it was a great learning experience. Just how to eat right. Like, I mean, just taking care of yourself as much as you can. You're never going to be mentally always okay, because touring is fucking hard.
Yeah.
But, all the crazy, maybe, I don't know. I don't even know how this could be a whole other podcast, but just about the one thing in my life I could always take care of myself was when I was on tour. And especially once we got into loaded, not before. once it came time to when it made a difference, like I guess where I knew I'm like, now I'm 30 years old. Wow, if I don't really take care of myself, I could blow it, like whatever. And it was great to be around him because being around him made you kind of want to go to the gym. It made you just want to eat differently and drink enough water and get sleep, but go have fun and still be a gang and be buddies and do all the stuff.
Right.
But like it used to be in like earlier, I'd go on tour and I'd come home and it would take me 2 months to recover. I'd come off tour, feel like shit. But when I would go on tour, like I'd come home in better shape. I'd feel better on tour than I would when I was at home because we had a day sheet. You wake up, okay, this is what today's going to look like. Where can I fit in? Okay, well, let's figure to fit in gym. Let's make sure to eat something. Let's get sushi here.
Even if there wasn't a gym, we would walk miles.
Yeah.
Like at home, sometimes you don't leave home except to go get a cup of coffee.
Right. And I took that, like when I decided to take the chances outside of Loaded and take touring gigs, which was a really weird thing to do. But one reason maybe that it worked for me was because I could take those lessons that I kind of learned through when we were doing that stuff. I'm like, okay,
right.
When I get out here, if I'm coming out with a band, maybe this is a good advice. No one's asking me for advice, but if there is some advice.
Never stop me, Jeff.
Yeah. When I would go out there, somebody's like, to us being from Seattle and being in bands, a weird thing for me was to like take paid hired guy gigs.
Right.
That's not something I didn't really know I knew guys that on our peripherals that we'd be on tour with, and those guys would be, but none of our friends, no one had really been doing that really.
Right.
Especially the kind of bands that I started picking up gigs with. But I knew once I got out there, I'm like, well, if they're paying me, I'm not going to drink. I don't care what anybody's doing. I'm not drinking. I'm not doing it. I'm going to eat. Like, if I have spare time, I'm going to go try to find a why. I'm going to go do something. Even though it was really like foreign to me and isolating, all I knew was kind of what I learned from the time in Loaded and Duff and stuff like that. I don't know if I could have done that and made it through that stuff.
Right.
So grateful for that. And it's such it's such a learning. I'm so glad I forced myself kind of to do those things. It's one of the most important things I think in probably me ever, regardless of how the stuff you go, it was just like, it was the biggest chance I think I ever took on myself, I guess. Because I would call you. I felt so alone.
No, we talked a bit while you were out on those tours, and I mean, I was always super proud and happy for you, even if you weren't being fulfilled in the same way that you would, like, if we were out touring together.
Right.
Or if Loaded was out doing it. Right.
Yeah,
but there's also a freedom in doing that is different. You're not worried about t-shirt sales. You're not worried about the meet and greet. You're not worried about, well, shit, do we have to get day rooms? How much are they? Fuck. Where are we going to get shore power? You're not worried about any of that shit.
And there's a couple times with singers and those one bands, and like I remember I got out there, I was pretty excited one night, like, okay, I'm getting comfortable now, and remember it was like there's these risers on the front, and I'm up jumping on it, and like after the show he's like, hey, I'm gonna have to tone it down a little bit. Like, you know what I mean? Like, in a cool way. I'm like, and I looked and I'm like, you got it. Like, it's that needed, you know what I mean? It was like, there's a thing when you're a guy out playing, like, it's a job, and you got to connect and you got to perform. And it might mean you came from a place where like we're a part of this thing and we're helping the creative process, and we in the artwork and all the stuff, and then all of a sudden you're hired to go out. And all these gigs I'd get, I wasn't even rehearsed with the band. They'd call me, and 2 days later I'm playing shows with these guys, and just kind of like figuring it out and trying to figure out how do you insert yourself into a social situation and not get in the way. First of all, on a bus is pretty small. Yeah. So like you have to find a way to be Switzerland all the time. Just be pretty neutral. Don't get in anybody's way and find your way through that. And then the second part is, how do you jump out on with a band that's been playing for years and be okay there. And it's like, find your moments. Let me tell this story. I think I've told you. So I got a gig playing in Buck Cherry, and I love those. I mean, love them. But Kelly Lemieux, he got really sick, and he had to get off the road.
Yeah.
And it was awful. And they had to make a choice where they're already doing this thing. We need to either cancel all the stuff or find somebody to come out until he gets better. They didn't know how long it was going to take.
Right.
So I jumped out. Within it was like 36 hours. All of a sudden, they were already on tour. I had to meet them up by where you live. I think in upstate New York was the first show. So
Dance theater.
Yeah. And so I get there, I cram and I learn these songs, and we had in the hotel room, we had a few minutes to go over stuff, and he's like, oh, don't worry, we'll go through some stuff at sound check.
No sound check.
Well, there was a sound check, but once we did one song pretty good, Josh was like, oh, we're good. I'm good. Sounds great. Good. I'm like, whoa. And they're a headlining band. Like, this is an hour and a half set. Right. And then, oh, by the way, like on the bus, in the middle of Crazy Bitch, Kelly does like an 8-minute bass solo.
Not really.
He does. Kelly's.
No, he's a fucking, yeah, no, he's a super badass.
He's one of the best bass players I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah.
And they do a breakdown, and they would all walk off stage, and Kelly would run through the gamut of all the stuff that I can't do. Like the tapping and the slapping and the melodic stuff and all this. Like, I mean, go to YouTube and watch it. And they're all like,
he didn't play. No, he's fucking insane.
And I'm like, guys, like, I mean, I got like this gig. I'm like, we're not gonna do that.
Right.
Like, so the first couple, like, and so eventually it was just one of those things. Like, you have to be. I just remember.
Play a bass solo though.
I would do a breakdown thing, and I would just start doing some cool runs.
Right.
Like, I'm not going to try to like pull out all the tricks. I don't do the tricks. I play bass
right
in a band. You know what I mean? And it would be embarrassing to try to do that.
Right.
But we finally figured out other ways to do cool stuff. But I just remember being like, that was a big lesson. Like, I'm thinking like, I got this touring. I could be a hired guy jumping out. Oh, not that guy though. Like Kelly can really be that guy. Kelly,
he's a next level.
He's next level, amazing. But God, those stories, like, and that was such a weird, cool thing to have done. And I remained friends with all those guys. Like Keith is like, I mean, just one of the most wonderful people. I think, I listened. He was on this a few weeks.
It was on the podcast. We won't talk about who else is in the video or what song we're doing, but we're going to do a Coutress video.
We are.
We're on our way there. We've got a couple of the parts. Yeah. I think I'll go last. I think you might get this stuff to work on next week.
Oh, that would be fantastic. That would be great. I can't wait to hear. I mean, knowing what we're doing, it's going to be super cool.
It's fucking rad.
Have you? I mean. Do I need to sing in that too? Are we doing all those harmonies? Are we doing? Maybe we should talk about this stuff in another way.
Hey,
okay, all right. Okay.
The main vocal is there. I don't think so. It's all worked out. You're not gonna. I don't believe you're gonna sing.
Okay, it's all good.
It's gonna be. Yeah, I don't know. We'll see.
I was just going to pull back the curtain. Like, I don't know. Like, do I have to like figure out how to set stuff up here so I'm actually playing and singing all live? Like, oh my God, I haven't been doing that. The deal. Well, you have to play it in a single pass all the way through. I know. That's what I'm saying. But I just
bring this all the way around. You know how people are doing, like a lot of folks are doing these quarantine videos now.
Sure.
We made one 2.5 years ago.
Yep.
We made one 2.5 years ago.
I know, isn't that crazy?
That only occurred to me recently, where I was like, I've been doing this for a minute.
Yeah, I put up my phone in my old apartment and I ran through that song one time live.
Right.
I think,
That's the deal.
Not knowing how cool, like I wish I've watched it again. I'm like, God, I should have done that a little bit. I should have filmed that a little bit. I just didn't know.
Could have.
Now you can see stuff. And you're your shit's like all cinematic now and everything. Like that was just like, here's my phone, you know?
Well, we're all just figuring it out.
Yeah, let's keep doing that. That's all we can really do. You know?
Jeff, I have to go to the bathroom so bad.
I gotta pee so bad, and I hear the kid. I gotta make dinner for the family. I love you.
I love you too, man. I can't. We talked for 2 hours,
Yeah, that's weird.
and
I
feel like I could talk for 2 more hours. But
yeah, this morning. I was even telling Stacy. She's like, "What are you gonna talk? You guys talk all the time." I'm like, I don't know. I don't know. Why am I doing this? But thanks for having me on.
Because I want to be a part of any effort to help inform people that you have some stuff coming out.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
check out on the radar.
Check out my stuff. That's cool.
Check out my junk.
Hey, check out my junk, because that's all you're gonna get. All right, buddy.
I love you, pal. Have a great night.
You too. We'll talk tomorrow.
I know.
All right. Good night, buddy.